After the inaugural Sim Gaming Expo held in Schaumburg, Illinois on September 5th through the 7th, I finally have found some time to express my thoughts, my feelings, and my experiences of really honestly one of the coolest events I've ever been part of. From trying out insane sim rig setups and sampling all the latest and greatest gear available, this event really had something for everyone. And I have to say, after a week of reflection and just kind of decompressing a little bit as well, honestly, because a lot happened that weekend for me, being a special guest, being part of it on the competition side, driving, being on a panel, just trying out everything. I finally kind of sat down and thought like how this weekend went and how much I enjoyed it. Like I heard this from a lot of people that basically they said this is the most fun weekend that they had all year, whether it was just simply trying out the equipment, competing, which, was a really cool aspect for me because, I've done sports, I've competed in front of a crowd. I've never sim raced in front of a crowd, and hearing the reaction of the crowd, from the races I was in was like it raised the hair on the back of my neck. At one point, actually kind of really encouraged me to keep going when a race was not going so well for me. But to me, the best part about this was just really the community aspect, because that's what sim racing is all about. Yes, like there's high level competition, but at the end of the day, this is something that we all love. Sim racing and by extension, racing in general is a wonderful sport. It's a wonderful hobby, and I was just really happy to be part of that, and being able to meet really cool people at the same time made me love this weekend. So to my best of my ability, I will try and recollect every single thing that I was part of this weekend, and some of the things that I saw, the people that I met, my friends that I met, the driving, the competition aspect, as well as just my overall general thoughts on how the event was run, which is to say, it was a wonderful event. With this being a sim racing expo, obviously like one of the biggest things was being able to see all the different hardware that was available, most of which like I'd seen before, but never in the flesh. And some of the things you can see like Micro Center, but there's usually like only one rig there. A lot of it's just in boxes. You can't really put your hands on, like feel what it's all about. And one of these are GSI rims. GSI rims are incredibly expensive, but they're really, really well made. GSI rims were on the competition rigs, and the wheel that they had there was really, really nice. Hoisting belt was also there. Of course, they make wonderful pedals, and I have the HE Sprints. I believe the HE Pros were on the sim rigs, and here you see some of the pedals, and here you can also see one of their new wheels that they made, which has a built-in display, and from what I was told, it was like incredibly light. It was like a very lightweight wheel. There's all kinds of different sim rig setups that were available to try, from like your very basic level stuff to full-blown motion rigs, which I tried a few of like the normal rigs, so to speak. Like I actually tried out a Moza rim for the first time, a Moza wheelbase for the first time, and I had to say I was quite impressed with the build quality. There's a wide variety of motion rigs, and I drove two of them. One of them was the Vero motion rig, and that was a really amazing experience. And here you can see my GoPro footage of it as I was driving it, and it doesn't really give you the full sense of like all of like the the motions that you feel, but you saw in her braking there. Obviously, it kind of throws you forward. It didn't throw me that far forward, but it did provide motion forward when I really slammed on the brakes. The design philosophy in this rig was really trying to like give you an accurate feeling of like what would it feel like to have the rear end of your race car step out. And you can see with this footage, like I was so almost nervous of it that like I was afraid to turn in hard because like, well, would the rear of the car kick out and how would I deal with it? So I was missing basically every apex, getting all kinds of slowdowns, and eventually I kind of got around to figure out how to actually drive on the apex now that I could kind of trust the rig. And it was all very intuitive, and it was super cool to drive. And there's a lot of motion rigs that like if you go under like hit the brakes hard, like you pitch down at like a 45-degree angle, which you'll feel that like level of like force in a race car, but like not quite that big. So when you hit the brakes on this, it felt like if I was really hitting the brakes hard on a race car, though nothing can exactly replicate that. I also got to try the Driven Dynamics rig, which in terms of like the cool factor, this was by far the coolest motion rig at the expo. You had to step in like into the cockpit, like you're effectively stepping into a monocoque of a race car, because there was a 5-point belt harness system, and it's probably a good thing that they have that, because I think in theory, like if you hit the wall hard enough at a side angle, you could potentially be like thrown out, but like not like thrown out, but like you'd slip off the side or something like that. And I felt this motion rig was quite intuitive too, where again, if I'm pressing on the brakes, I was like longitudinally like thrown forward, not like front of the motion rig just dipping down. So again, it felt like it made sense, and it was so cool just driving it. At one point into the chicane of Road Atlanta, I decided I'm just gonna threshold brake at like as late as I dare, and we'll just see what happens. And it stuck, and like I've never felt a more cool feeling like in a simulator before than doing that. There's also some non-sim racing stuff too, which many of you don't know, but like my first love in simulators was actually not sim racing. I have always enjoyed flying, so playing Microsoft Flight Simulator when I was a kid, and I still do occasionally now. And they had a full-blown, basically, one-to-one model, like every button, every switch, every dial, every rotor was usable on an Airbus. So it was basically an Airbus cockpit that I imagine you could kind of use for training eventually. I was able to hang Chris into flying with me. He was in the co-pilot seat, I was in the pilot seat, and we were on the runway, and naturally the first thing I did was firewall the engines to full throttle, and promptly a warning came up saying the parking brake was still on, so we throttled back and took the parking brake off, and we took out without incident. And I say without incident because, well, we decided, well, let's try and land the plane before they before the people working there boot us out of the cockpit. So we're making our approach, and we're doing a reasonable speed. Unfortunately, I bounced the landing, and I then got it back on level ground again, but Chris and I could not for the life of us find the brakes, so unfortunately we overran the runway despite having reverse thrusters on, which by itself does not stop the plane, all while the crowd and the audience looked on in the back, politely noting where the auto brake was, but not telling us. So as a last-ditch measure, Chris suggested, well, let's pull the parking brake. As we were in the grass, I pulled the parking brake, and that was that. We landed the plane, and honestly, when it comes to flying, it's any landing you can walk away from, and I don't think we actually walked away from it. I probably collapsed the landing gear after bouncing it the first time, but nevertheless, it was really super cool to try that out. So while it was really cool for me to like try out all the equipment, obviously you don't get to try a motion rig like every weekend, I was there for the people. I was there because I wanted to meet people. Chris from the team, my friends, came, so it was really awesome to see him. And I really wanted to meet a lot of people that I already knew who I had not met before, or maybe like met once or twice before. And so for all of you who came up to me and met me and told me you enjoy my work or you enjoy what I did, it was really awesome meeting you. At first, I was super nervous about it. I actually stood outside like the entrance for 30 to 40 minutes, nervous, just kind of overwhelmed by all of it, not really sure what to do basically. But once I walked in and started meeting people, and it was really an enjoyable experience, and I hope you had fun there too. And it actually got to the point where so many people, I know, humble brag, right? So many of you came up to me that I probably can't place every single person like to each moment, like where I can maybe remember meeting somebody, and you could conceivably tell me a story of like, oh, I met you here, and I might not actually remember. But it was definitely super cool to have that experience, or to be recognized by so many people, whether it's for being in the Pro Series, for Arca Break Weekly, or just being me, I suppose, and enjoying my content. So it was really nice hearing all that, because sometimes I feel like my content or what I do just goes out into like a void and doesn't really have an impact on anybody. But I could tell after that weekend, the last weekend, that could not be further from the truth, and that this is something that it is worthwhile doing. On Friday, we also held a panel, which originally was just me on the schedule, but this is for the fans, and I didn't want to just be me, so I was able to harangue some other people into being part of the panel, including Punju, Arrow, and Rudy. And Renee from Overtake hosted for us, and I really want to thank Renee for doing that, because it was very much last moment, and he moderated what really was a wonderful panel, and it was so much fun doing. I honestly did not do the best. I've never done a panel before. I could kind of tell with the way my answers were I kind of ramble with my answers. I was actually quite tired. So Renee's done some broadcast work. I think he's worked for TV before, And I could tell as he was raising his microphone as I was speaking, that was kind of code for like, finish it up, Hyperstar. We were also like cut off. I don't know if it was like by security, but we were definitely cut off by event staff because we went over time. I mean, go figure, we had 4 streamers up there. Sometimes, you know, if you're a streamer, you tend to like hearing yourself talk sometimes. So somehow that does not surprise me that we went over time. So apart from meeting my other streamer friends, some of the other people I met included Dave Kamer. I shook hands with Dave Kamer himself, and I didn't really know what to say. So like after I shook his hand, I told him like, I basically like, hey, you'll never believe this, but when I was 5 years old, like my parents gave me Papyrus IndyCar Racing like for Christmas, and Dave laughed. He's like, oh, that was so long ago. But then he was talking about like he still has the boxes for all those old games, and hearing him talk about that was really cool. How much those games like meant to him, and because I mean that's his life's work. He put so much work into them, so he still has the boxes, and he was kind of dating himself and myself to a degree maybe of how they're actually like the 5.5 inch floppy, the 5.5 inch floppies in the Indianapolis 500 game that he made back in I believe 1989. And so as I was about to talk to him kind of more about like what he did for those games, they did not interrupt me, but they had something very important that they had to tell Dave Kamer, and that was, when are we getting the new helmet template? We need the new helmet template. Please, Dave, iRacing, give us that new helmet template. The helmet template now is terrible. We need something that's a lot easier to paint on. There are many other panels that weekend, and Tony Kanan was on one, and his discussion panel is basically a talk about how he went from real racing to sim racing, effectively at the onset of COVID, because, you know, prior to that, of course, there's all kinds of simulator work that could be done in racing, and Tony was apparently never really a fan of doing that sim work for various reasons. COVID, in a sense, kind of forced him to, you know, be part of that. And actually, he ended up really kind of enjoying it for what it is. At some point in the panel, and I'd have to like find a video to see like if he actually did what I think he did, because Tony commentated on the second race of our race weekend in the IndyCar like open invitational thing that we were part of. And like he was talking about like the event, I believe, and then he looked at me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, he's looking at me. And so I was able to actually talk with him after his panel was over. I asked him like, hey Tony, like, nice to meet you, like, what do you think of the race? Like, and he told me thought it was a really good race. And I was like, yeah, Tony, I killed my tires. It was not going great at the end. And he was very much like, yeah, I could tell. I could see that you were killing your tires. But he saw like, you said like how he saw I was still holding on for the podium, so that I was doing good. And that was, you know, pretty cool to have a conversation like that where I even tell him my name, like he just knew it was me, right? I mean, I do kind of stand out with the hair, so maybe it makes sense. But he asked me if I was racing the next day, and I told him yes, and he told me good luck, and he had to go, and that was that. But you know, really humble guy, really nice guy, and very self-deprecating humor too. Like during his talk, he was referenced to the fact that he was wearing his Alpine Stars like racing boots, and he was making fun of the fact like people could see him as like, oh look, it's like a try-hard sim racer. He's wearing racing boots, walking around with them. So very nice dude. It was awesome that he was able to be part of this weekend. And then I met Tony's friend Tyson, or better known as Quirk, of course. Quirk, one of the biggest iRacing streamers that there is on Twitch. I tell this story. I'll explain why I'm telling this story. It will seem like I'm bragging. Trust me, I'm not. Quirk actually recognized me right after I met Tony. He's like, oh, hey, we're in Hyperstar. It's really nice to see you. And, you know, we shook hands, and he jokingly said like, oh, this guy's a better streamer than I am. I'm like, I don't know if I'd say that. You're pretty good yourself, especially in terms of, you know, how many people watch Quirk and how successful he's been, how much of an audience he's grown, how much fun he has doing this really kind of strange hobby that we both partake in. So it was wonderful getting to meet him. And like I say, it's not like a brag for me to say that aspect of it. It really says everything about him and nothing about me, right? When it comes to like stars, like if it's in Hollywood or entertainment, the real stars are the people who take the time and recognize you, will have a conversation with you, take photos, right? Like Tony Kanan talked to me about, you know, the IndyCar stuff that weekend, same for Quirk. And honestly, there's no one I can really consider that are aloof or dismissive in sim racing. Like every person I've met in sim racing has taken the time to like either, talk to me or just, ask me how things are going kind of deal, right? Like, it's a really wonderful community to be part of. Over the course of the weekend, there are also many different competitions on the competition area, which there's 15 rigs set up in total to have competitive races for prizes. In total, I had 6 different races. There's 5 as part of the open wheel series, and then there was 1 as part of the creator series. And there's a really strange sensation every time I went to enter the rig. Like it felt like I was walking into a race car. Of course, it's not the same thing. I've never driven a race car or stepped into a race car, right? But like, there is like that mentality and like a mental preparation of here I am, like it's showtime, right? Like time to get in the rig, time to drive. It was a really fun environment just to be in. I heard the crowd at one point when there's an accident at the Road America race, right? Between Kraus and Crane, and my race had not really been going well at that point, but like I heard the crowd. I was able to look up to the stage and see what happened. I knew there was 2 positions I could gain, and it really motivated me. I was kind of, I don't know, like sad is the right word, but like I knew I'd made a mistake. I was trying to claw back whatever points I could get, and I could not get that at any other, like, I don't get that at home, right? I can only have that feeling when I'm in a competition area and people are watching me. So while it didn't go like I'd hoped, I finished 5th overall in the championship. I still had so much fun. And basically, I heard from everyone like the prizes would be cool, like if you could win them, but like the experience alone was what mattered the most. And for me personally, I was just hoping that at least me or Chris could get on the podium. And Chris finished 3rd in the championship, so he walked away the GSI wheel. Phil Kraus finished P2, and really an upset. Caleb Brashear, seemingly kind of coming out of nowhere, upset the field and took home P1. Altogether, we're a really small community, and we've come a long way since at least I've been part of it for the past 12 years. And together as a group, we went out to Top Golf on Saturday nights, and I really want to say a big shout out to Lucas for getting that put together for us, and it was just so much fun picking up a club for the first time in 20 years. Overall, I got to watch a lot of the competition too, specifically the Porsche stuff. And, I've never been to like a live like esports event, right? Like you can watch Counter-Strike live, or you can watch Rocket League live, or lots of other different games live. Sim racing doesn't really have events like that. So being able to see that live in person, everyone clapping and cheering for people who won races was really cool to be part of. And I have to say that overall, I had a wonderful experience at this event. I did not have a single negative experience. Everyone was really friendly. I got to try out so much equipment for free. Like a lot of these like simulator rigs, like you can have them like at the mall in theory, I suppose, and you could definitely charge people to do that. There's no charge at all to try anything that you want to try at this expo. I definitely know there's probably some little things they can change on the back end, but as far as like the overall like, attendee experience, the overall guest experience, it went wonderfully. There was nothing went wrong that could have gone wrong. And for a first time event, there often can be mistakes, and that's okay. Like there's always going to be things you can work on, but as far as like how it affected me, there was nothing. I had an absolute blast and had no issues doing the things that I wanted to do there. So I really want to give a big shout out to George. He is the person behind Sim Gaming Expo. He's been very active in the sim racing community. He's run leagues in the IndyCar community, most notably the Lionheart League, for example. And he got this done. He got this all organized in basically less than a year, which is insane when you think about it. When I first heard about this time a year ago, it was just an idea, right? Like George worked really hard to do this. He flew to Dortmund basically to get an idea of like how things like this can be done, how you can run them, how you can organize them. And this expo was a home run. I mean, at this point, like George is a free pass from me to do like what he needs to make this event even better next year. And I helped in part kind of get the open wheel stuff off the ground, and I just had so much fun that I want to be here every year so long as this can continue. I also want to give a big shout out to all the volunteers and staff. Volunteer staff, those are the backbones of the conventions. They do the hard work, and they put together the rigs as well. And one story I can kind of share to you, like as close as I can feel to like a racing driver thinking an engineer. After the first race that I did, I get out of the rig, I see the people in the shirts, and I asked, like, were you the ones putting together these rigs? And one of them said yes. And I thank them for putting together those P1X rigs from SimLab, because here I am sitting in my SimLab P1X. It took me over the course of like 3 days to put this thing together. Now, I'm not very engineering inclined, as you may very well know from my streams and trying to use power tools, right? But like, it's still an effort to get these things together, and to do it in the short amount of time that they did was really cool. Being able to use these rigs and having no problems with them at all. And the thing that mattered most to me about this expo was the community aspect. This is an expo that is for the community and by the community, right? I had a lot of opportunities to hang out, with streamer friends and people from the IndyCar community as well for the first time, meeting people for the first time that I'd spoken to for years or had known for years, and realizing how much like we all really kind of had in common. And again, this doesn't happen without the expo. So I'm really thankful to, George and the team for putting this together. And I think the sky's the limit here. Who's to say this can't become something gigantic, right? The first expo was, we started with 15 rigs. Who's to say the next one doesn't have like 30? What about 60, right? Something insane like that. My dream one day is that if this expo continues, is that we've had a lot of community races over the years. It would be my dream. It would be my goal to one day have an i5G community race at Sim Gaming Expo. It was so much fun being part of this, and I cannot wait for the next one. Thank you for watching this video. It's been a while since I put out a video. I've been quite busy, whether it's with the expo or lots of other things in the background. I'm going to make some more videos in the near future, including a review of a Pimax Crystal headset, as well as giving you an updated room tour video. I haven't done a rig tour / room tour now in close to 3 years, and I made a lot of upgrades since then and lots of new stuff to show off, so I've been wanting to do that for a while too. So I will see you again in the next video.